Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second CVAX webinar. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. Before I begin, just a quick note, this is a live session. So if you have any issues with my video, audio, or screen sharing, just send me a message and I'll do my best to fix it right away. Okay, let's start. For today on the agenda, I have a 20-minute webinar. A 20-minute webinar where I will explain data strategy. If you have questions during this webinar, please enter them in the Q&A module of this webinar. At the end, there will be time to answer those questions. This is a challenge for me because actually talking about data strategy is something that I do for multiple hours up till a 2-day training. So let's hope that I will respect the timing of 20 minutes, but I will do my best. In this webinar, I have 3 main topics. First of all, I will introduce you to the data triangle. The data triangle is about people, processes, and tools and how they are connected to data. Then we will go to a data strategy. How will a data strategy influence this data triangle so that you can get more value from data? And finally, I will introduce you my practical framework to create a data strategy by means of a value-first approach. Let's start with the beginning, the data triangle. The data triangle goes about people, processes, and tools. In every organization, you have processes. Processes where people work and execute their tasks in. So a process is a sequence of steps, and people work in a certain step, and they are doing their tasks. Processes will help organizations to create value for the organization. For example, by means of a process, you will create goods that can be sent to your customer. And those people work in processes and they are connected or using tools. Those tools for office workers can be, for example, a CRM system. A CRM system where they enter information about their customers, or an ERP system. And here's the trick. By working in those tools, you will create data. So in a digital environment, there will be data created in or by means of those tools, and this data will be stored. So here we have our data sources. Data sources linked to tools, linked to people and processes. Now, what do we want to do in a data-driven organization is to valorize this data, to do more with this data than just using it in an operational context, which is already quite difficult. So to do this, we introduce a new component, a component called a data platform. This data platform will get all data out of those source systems or all relevant data, combine it and transform it into something that we call data sets. Data sets is data that is in a usable form so that you can do valuable things with your data. Of course, this data is not immediately available for your users. We need to put an application on top of this data. And those are the so-called data apps. And data apps can have different shapes. First of all, a data app can be a report where data is being visualized in a graphical way so that you can make or have a good insight on a certain trend in your organization. Another example of a data app is an AI tool where you have a Q&A interface where you can ask questions about your data. Then you also have raw exports. You can have spreadsheet files where users use data in their spreadsheets and create their own insights. You can have KPIs. You can have analytics where you can do forecasts and so on. So actually, applications that help users in their processes to valorize data. In the rest of this presentation, I will use those yellow rectangles as an icon for a data application. I already put it one rectangle in a certain process step, but of course, in multiple steps, you will see those applications. It will even make some process steps obsolete, or it will introduce new ways of working in your organization. It's also possible to get data applications in your tools, in your operational tools, that you have actually one tool where you can work in with data. Now we will zoom in on how data applications can deliver strategic value. Because we saw strategic value, we saw data applications, but we didn't see the connection between those. To explain this, let's jump to another visualization. A visualization where we have on the y-axis the value and on the x-axis the time. As an organization, you have a certain ambition. You would reach certain value by a certain time. And you will grow towards this value by executing a business strategy. A business strategy describes how you will innovate your business to reach your ambitions. And now we will plot the data applications on this business strategy. Actually, it should be like this. You have your applications, and those applications will step by step help you to realize your business strategy. And you realize those applications by means of data projects. Let's now zoom in onto this one, your data projects and how they are connected to your business strategy. Let's retake this visualization. You have your business strategy, which explains how you innovate your business to reach your ambitions. Unfortunately, in many organizations, I don't see a connection between the data apps and the business strategy. We are using data, we are doing things with data, but it's unclear how it's linked to the business strategy. I don't say that those applications aren't creating value, but it's unclear how they are linked. And if we zoom a bit in on those applications, I always compare these with an iceberg metaphor. An iceberg metaphor where the application is the top of the iceberg. Your dashboard, your AI tool, that's what you see. But under the surface, there's a lot of work you need to do to make those tools or those applications work. For example, if your data quality is not, or your data is not of a high quality, you need to improve this data quality. If you don't know how your business definitions are, it's difficult to exploit those business definitions in your applications. If you have unstructured data and it's unclear how to leverage this unstructured data, you need to do things. So depending on the application that you want to realize, there might be a need for a lot of work to do before you can realize the application. And this has an impact on the budget needed to realize those applications, and also on the resources, people that need to work under the surface to make those things work. And if we connect this insight with the previous slide, then we get something like this. You have your data applications, which are not connected to your business strategy, but you need a budget for this and you need resources for this. And that becomes complicated to explain to your executives. Your executives who want to do things with their budget that helps them to go to their ambitions, but you cannot link what you do to this growth path, and that's difficult. So I will now summarize this. First of all, data projects are not linked to the business strategy, which makes it hard to sell. Secondly, it's unclear where the data investments will lead to. We invest in those data applications because we need to, but we don't know why. And thirdly, it's hard and complex to deliver quality in data projects. Now, I know this is a quite opinionated slide. I state that no data project is linked and it's unclear for any data investment. But of course, depending on the organization, some projects can be linked, others can't. So it's not a black or white situation, it can be gray as well. So now we want to do better. I introduced you the data triangle and how value can be created by means of data and why it's so difficult to do this. Now we will jump into a data strategy. How can a data strategy help here? I will explain this with the same visualization as before. You have an ambition as an organization, and you have a business strategy to reach this ambition. We will now add something to this graph, and that's the data strategy. A data strategy will give you capabilities, new capabilities to realize the applications that help you to realize your business strategy. So actually a data strategy should be connected to your business strategy, and it helps you to realize the things that you need to reach your ambitions. I always like to visualize things in another world to make it comprehensible. So let's visualize this as a building. You are creating a building, but there are some unstable parts in this building, the pink parts over here. You want to improve these parts. In a data world, those parts can be unclear roles and responsibilities, which make it hard to reach the desired quality. It can be a low data quality, which can result in low results. It can be a bottleneck in delivering data applications because you don't have a good delivery process or you don't have the right resources. Or it can be the delivery of low quality reports because you don't have the right process knowledge. Actually, we want to take away all those bottlenecks, all those obstacles. And that's what we want to do in a data strategy. Actually, if data strategy would be used to improve this building, we will get something like this, where you have a stable basis for growth, where at the end you can easily grow data applications. But of course, we are not creating buildings. Luckily that I'm not creating buildings, but we are optimizing the data to value flow. So your data strategy will optimize how data can be turned into value. And this is how this flow looks like. You have your data. Your data becomes available as data sets and even in more major environments as products. Those will then be used by users as an app in a process. And this will help you to realize your ambitions. So actually this complete flow, we want to improve this, that it runs as smooth as possible. And this is, to realize this, is again about people, processes, and tools, but actually about people, data skills for people, about processes in working with data, about tools that can help you to turn data into insights. And I'm pretty convinced that in every organization today, you already have some data skills in your organization. So your people skills for data are already at a certain level. The same with processes and the same with tools. I visualize those as a bar chart. Now, in the future, you want to increase this. You want to have some growth. You want to improve or increase your data literacy skills of your people, increase or improve your processes, and have tools that help you to work with data. And here you can do literally anything that helps you to realize your ambitions. I will give some examples, but please, this is non-exhaustive. So you can introduce new data roles. You can do changes to your organization. You can make links or better links with your enterprise architecture. You can tweak your data platform. You need to change processes and so on. So this is an endless list of things that you can do to grow your organization towards its goal. Luckily, we don't want to do this overnight. We want to grow gradually to this future. And that's what we do with a roadmap. In a data strategy, we also create a roadmap which maps out all initiatives, all projects that will help us to realize this future. And this is actually a growth path, how we will grow piece by piece towards the future that we have in mind. And then the final thing I want to add here is that the data strategy is about making strategic choices. It's unrealistic that you as an organization wants to have anything now, and anything that is possible in another organization that you want to have it as well as fast as possible. No, you have to make strategic choices to work, to define things that work for your organization. As an example, you can have the ambition to make or to turn everyone into a data scientist, to improve the data literacy of everyone so that they become data scientists. But is this realistic? Can you turn every office worker into a data scientist? I don't believe in it. You can also want to have an AI super tool where everyone can ask questions about your own data. We are not there yet today. Is this a realistic ambition? I don't think so right now. So actually, you need to make the right choices to define your future. But how do you do this? How do you create such a strategy that helps you to go from where you are today to this future where you can work better with data? And there I use my own approach. And I call it a value-first approach. And it consists out of 3 steps. First of all, zoom in into the value for your organization. Secondly, analyze your as-is situation. And thirdly, investigate how your to-be situation will look like. First, the value part. For the value part, you have to listen to the ambitions of your business, the ambitions of your organization. Actually, that's in many organizations already defined in a business strategy, in a long-term plan, or something like that. Those ambitions are the value drivers for what you want to do with data. If you have those value drivers, you can now look for data use cases that can help to realize those value drivers. What is a use case? A use case is a data application that is being used in a certain context. It's actually a scenario of use where you use an application in a process. For example, an AI tool, a report, or a KPI. And now we will link those data use cases to those value drivers. So we know those use cases will bring that value. Then we go to the as-is. In the as-is, we start again from those data use cases that we have from the previous step, those data use cases that bring value. And we will now look for the data entities that are needed to realize this value. Do we need customer data? Do we need invoice data? Or do we need something else? And then we will go deeper in the flow. Which data will lead to those entities? And where is this data produced? In which process? Who's responsible for this data? How do we integrate all this data to get it into the entities and to go to the use cases? And of course, you are defining a data strategy because not everything is working as you expect. So there are some obstacles. Now you can start to identify what are the obstacles to go from data to use cases. And those obstacles are essential for later steps. It can be technical, it can be processes, it can be regarding data quality, it can be literally anything. And now we go to the third step, the to-be situation. We group the obstacles, we prioritize the obstacles, and we look for what is really blocking us from moving forward. And we turn this in our solutions. We will now see, and that's difficult to do it in a general approach, but for every organization, you look for the solutions that will help them to resolve those obstacles and to grow towards the business ambitions. Actually, you are creating data ambitions right now. So you define the as-is, you define the to-be, and then you can start to phase out, to create a roadmap where you plot all the things you want to do to grow towards your to-be ambitions. This is actually more project and program management. But I now presented the framework, but that this is not a good sales talk. I should say it's not magic. I cannot give you the framework and say, hey, this will solve all your problems. I will now share you 3 lessons learned on how I applied the framework and where I learned how to do it better next time. The first lesson learned is that I use it frequently workshop-based. workshop based, where you have post-its, where you have markers, big walls, you bring people together, and you start to work on mapping out a data strategy. You can do it physical, or you can also do it virtual in Miro or something else. When doing workshops, some challenges that I have. First of all, very simple, finding a time slot. Finding a time slot to bring people together is very hard, and that will slow down every data strategy exercise. Secondly, who need to participate in such a workshop? Finding a good group with the right thinking approach, with an open mindset, is difficult. And then my role, the unbiased facilitator, I need to be prepared. I need to know something about the organization without losing my unbiased view. And thirdly, you can get in a workshop a fear of missing out, where you end with 500 use cases while you only need the most important ones. Then secondly, communication. Data strategies goes about change in an organization. And there you need to communicate a message to many people. You have many people, meaning many communication lines. People talk to each other about data, and it's very hard to manage. The approach that I use here is storytelling. Storytelling on a horizontal level to make people at the same level in the organization to understand the same, but also between bottom up and top down. You want to do something with data, but you need to sell this message. This is a kind of an internal marketing. And this is when I started drawing. That's my approach, but you can use any preferably visual approach to bring your message. And then thirdly, the last lesson learned, think big and start small. You think big, you create a vision, how in an ideal world you want to work with data. But you have to start small. You map out a growth path, a roadmap, how you can go towards this vision. But this is actually a roadmap full of guesses. You don't know exactly how long something will take. Some new innovations can come along your way. So I would encourage you to work on some first use cases as fast as possible to make your growth path better and better. And then at a certain stage, you always will become better, and it will become more easy to realize new data use cases. And this is 23 minutes, so 3 minutes over time, my excuse. I explained to you the data triangle, how data is connected to people, process, and tools. I explained to you data strategy and also how you can realize it in a value-first approach. But don't forget, how you tune at your data strategy, no matter what you do, culture always eats strategy for breakfast. Because you can define a strategy, but if the culture of your organization is not about looking to numbers, working with data, if you create a strategy where you expect everyone to start working with data today, it will not work. So we need to find a balance between culture and strategy that will work for your organization. And that's why a copy-paste is difficult between organizations. So I see there are already 8 questions, so we will go to the Q&A as fast as possible. Just a webinar announcement. Tuesday, April 29, we will talk about agentic AI, and I invite here Amra from the Antwerp-based startup Wobby, how agentic AI will disrupt traditional business intelligence. So as I said, I don't believe in an AI tool that does everything, they build it. So I'm pretty excited to see how this will work. If you're interested in the slides, please send me an email. Here is my email address, and I will also send you a mail after this webinar. I will now jump to the questions. One moment. The first question. That's from Anastasia. If you were to give one tip to somebody new to data management, what would it be? If you were to recommend only one resource to learn about data management, what would it be? So first of all, one tip for something from data management, that's knowing 2 worlds, the data world and your business world, because you need to understand how data works, but it's also very important that you can map this onto how the business works. Process knowledge, knowing the ins and the outs of your business model. That's where the true value lies, how you can connect both. And recommend only one resource to learn about data management. That's a difficult one. There I need to think about. I think you are looking for a book or for a certain course. I will think something more in defining definitions, data quality, and so on, but I don't have a resource straight in my mind. So I will try to answer that later. Then I have Michael. You mentioned data apps. Are you avoiding the term products on purpose? I don't avoid the term data product, but I see a difference between data product and data app. For me, a data product is how you deliver your data to be used in an application. For example, a data product can be a data mart with all necessary metadata, your access management, and so together. And that's an ideal basis to be used in an application for self-service reporting. So your Power BI, for example, can be your application, or your report can be your application, but your product is making your data as usable as possible. Then I have Nicolas, who asked, what about operational data? It looks static data oriented only. No, that's not the case. I can imagine that you see it like that because I have the data platform and every data flows statically through it. But in your architecture, you can define this in any way you want. You can make it a real-time system. You can make it turn it into a streaming architecture where you create your platform as part of your data architecture. So you can turn it in the way that you want to put it closer to your operational data. Maybe one remark here. A lot of operational tools also have opportunities to work with operational data. So if that's the case, or you have a certain view on operational data, you can certainly integrate it in your data strategy. Then I have Guillaume, who typically creates the data strategy. Where in the organization would you put this person? In what way does this person differ from an enterprise architect or a data architect? When I started to read your question, the first two roles that I had in mind is an enterprise architect or a data architect. So actually creating your data strategy, someone needs to own that strategy. And then if you see at management level, you have a chief data officer or someone with that role. That's for me the owner of that strategy. Then he needs people who support him or her in doing this work. And then you have enterprise architects, you have data architects, but you also have data governance leaders who can help here. So the ownership is for the chief data officer, or if you don't have that role, the person who is having this function right now. It can also be one part of your data strategy to create this role. But for me, it's somewhere there owned, and then you have multiple roles who can contribute to the creation of this data strategy. Then there's a question of Eric. I agree that data strategy has to be aligned and to support the business strategy. More than that, the role of data has to be integrated in the business strategy. I completely agree, Eric. This is how to go, but it's sometimes difficult for organizations to start with it right away. But if you become very proficient with data, then you no longer need a data strategy. Then it just becomes part of your business strategy. Let's say that the data strategy is the step-up approach to reach this. Then a question from Michiel. What is your go-to method for defining the data use cases? My go-to method is first to have a kind of, it's not really a course, but it's a 30-minute training that I give on which type of use cases that exist and give some examples with a fictive or a non-existing company in mind. In my case, it's mostly a soup factory, where I explain how can you use data in a soup factory. And that opens the mind of people. And then I ask them as homework, try to think about how data can be used in your organization and how can you transform your organization just like I did in the soup factory. And then people can prepare this and they go into a workshop with an open mind and with use cases in their head. And then a question of Toland: how do you deal with data quality in cases where one is not sure if the data is quality assured in the operational level either? How do you proceed? Well, Toland, I have a complete approach for data quality. I explained it in the previous webinar. So if you send me a mail, I can give you access to the recording. But actually, for me, that's part of your data strategy. You need to look for the root causes of your data quality and for cleaning strategies. So you have the monitoring part. You say we are not sure the data quality is assured. So monitoring should be part of your strategy. Finding root causes as well and putting that in a plan. That can be perfectly be part of your data roadmap. Then I have a question of Adi, who, assuming a domain expert, should do modeling data sets to get data ready for analysis in data apps. That's a good question, but for me, that depends on your organizational approach. And that's typically the question between centralized and decentralized. If you have a centralized approach, then you need to look in that team how they can organize data modeling. Typically, you have some data modeling guys that are supported by domain experts. But if you are in a completely decentralized approach, then modeling is mostly part of your domain teams. And then you have all hybrid approaches in between. So my advice here is to think about your organizational model, which roles you have, and how you can make this work in a process for data modeling. And then, sorry, I'm going over time because there are many questions. First, a question from Pablo. How do I convince the CEO or directors of the importance of a data strategy? For me, convincing them is by explaining them how a data strategy will help them to realize their business strategy better and faster. The connection between those two is the answer to this question. So it's essential to find a tight connection between those two. I have a question from Guillaume. Where would you maintain a data strategy? Can you give some example of tools which can be used for this? How would you link data strategy to a business strategy? Regarding tools, I can already give a scoop. In May, the date is not yet fixed. A tool will be presented to maintain a data strategy in large-scale environments. So if you have a big environment and you have a lot of initiatives to work on, you need tooling support. There are not many toolings in this field, but I found a startup recently acquired that will present how they work with this. Otherwise, I will always say, use the tools you already have. In portfolio management, in strategy management, you already have tools to follow up projects, to follow up programs. Try to integrate it into those already existing frameworks. Linking to the data strategy and business strategy is a matter of ownership on management level. Someone who helps to work on the business strategy, if this person is also owner from the data strategy, they can work together and they can try to translate this to influence in both worlds, because you need to explain the possibilities of AI to make it influence your business strategy, as an example. So tooling, specific tooling exists, but not much. Use existing tooling for projects, programs, and so on, and look how you can extend it. And linking data strategy and business strategy on management level, you need to have someone who's responsible, and that person can then connect to your data organization or people working with data who are responsible for data in your organization. Eric answers the question from Anastasia, non-invasive data governance from Robert Seiner. Thanks for that. And then the last question from Didier. I'm coming from a process analyst background. I understand that the way to go is to look at the output side and then go back to the origin and source and not starting from the produced data. I guess you agree. I agree. That's exactly what I wanted to say, Didier. And a great book on that is it's behind me, I think, Flow Engineering, where they explain you have to start with the end in mind. You have to start with the value that you can bring, and then you can go back. So that's actually a very good summarization. So I think I answered every question. Sorry for going over time. I thought that 30 minutes would be enough. So thank you all for this live interaction. I hope I gave you some inspiration. If you want the slides, send me an email. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, or if you have anything to discuss, I'm always open to discuss or to connect about subjects in the data world. So thanks for that. And I hope to see you again at the end of April in our next webinar. So thank you all.